A little loose around here today. I think it's been a long week and we're so glad to have you with us. Now, we were chatting about crypto, and that is a little bit of a lead into all things NFTs. And it's something that our next guest has been really sinking his teeth into lately. I mean, Axie Infinity was in our weekend newsletter a couple of weeks ago. It's all the rage. Sandbox. If you don't know what I'm talking about, let's get an explanation from Michael Frazis from Frazis Capital Partners. Nice to see you on this Friday morning, Michael. Look,
how's it going?
We could just set the scene with the fact that, there used to be plenty of gamers. There was never money involved, at least not that we know of. And then crypto has sort of really changed the rules of gaming. Take RuneScape, for example.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if you think about traditional gaming, people spent so much time and invested such significant portions of their lives in building characters, in developing them. It got to a point where there were people in poor countries around the world who would build characters up and sell them. Now, the issue was back in the day, or I guess it's still the case for most games, they were run by companies that really frowned on that kind of idea. The companies owned all the IP, they owned the characters. If they saw you selling or transacting a character, generally they'd kind of block you from the game. So you think about what's possible with gaming in crypto land. Basically, every character is an NFT. Every character, which means firstly it's secure, you know who owns it. But secondly, if it's in a wallet, you can transact it with anybody in the world. And modern games, crypto Web3 games, are kind of being built from the ground up to take advantage of that. So that's one thing. Another part of it is, the stakes are much higher in crypto games. So let's say something like RuneScape or World of Warcraft, where you're kind of mining, you're building wealth within a game. That's already something that hundreds of millions of people are spending a huge amount of time doing. Imagine if that wealth was cryptocurrency that could then be, traded immediately out of and freely with no restrictions from an overseeing corporation. It really kind of increases the stakes, and I think those games would be a lot more fun, a lot more obsessive, for better or worse, I guess. But definitely a lot more interesting as well. So you're just starting to see that happen now. This is all stuff that's happened in the last 6 to 12 months.
And talk to us about Axie Infinity. I listened to a podcast about it. It took me a minute to get my head around exactly what was going on. But this is really next level, isn't it? Because you've got people literally, making money. Yeah, it's crypto, but there are people who are basically funding their lifestyle through this game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's almost like a bit of a global equalizer. There's people that have lots of time and no money, and people have lots of money and no time, but want to play these games. This is nascent behavior. This was happening before. This just makes it more secure, more relevant. And, Axie is a game that, people can play, they can invest time, and they can accrue value as well. And like all things on the blockchain chain, the interesting thing is you can see everything in real time. So we're going through a reporting season now. You're getting that 3-month quarterly snapshot, very limited information, no transaction data. The company's generally finished reporting on Sep 30. It's November now, so you're already in the second month after. You're so behind, it's so slow. When you're trying to analyze something in crypto space, you can see every single transaction in real time. So you can say that that Axie has done something like 200 mil, just shy of 200 mil of USD of revenue over the last 30 days. And that's verifiable, you can see it. You can compare that to every other protocol of, say, the Ethereum blockchain or any other transparent blockchain and see how that compares, see who's growing, see who's shrinking. And that's another really interesting dynamic, because it means that if you're interested in these games, you can also kind of participate. If you're interested in what's happening in the space, you can participate, effectively as an investor. You can buy Axie, you can stake it, and that can then be used within the game by other players.
Michael, is there a risk that this could be perceived to be a fad? Now, I'm just going back from my own personal experience. When I was a wee tacker, I used to go and collect basketball cards, and they used to be the big fad, and then died off. And then we had Second Life, which was the big internet. Then all of a sudden it died off. Then we had Pokemon Go, and then a really big fad, and then it died away. Is there a risk that we're going in these games the same thing?
Well, it's interesting you say that. Every single example you gave is something I'd use as old behavior that kind of shows exactly what's going on in crypto. Only now it's better. You can trade, baseball cards in crypto land, except that, you own them. They're not fake. Are they fads? Yeah, of course they'll be fads. There'll be fashionable games all the time. They'll rise and fall in popularity. Today people will be collecting one thing. It might be another thing in the future. One thing I would say that is different is the communities seem to be much more involved because there's more actual, real, tangible value in the sense it's cryptographically secure value. The communities that evolve around these things seem to be much more intense. Like if you go on the Discord chats, like I don't remember people forming, like typically if you had a community around, say, I don't know, Pokemon or something, and you're rewinding the clock 20 years, you'd really only be talking to your friends about it, right? But now there's these global communities of people who can trade and transact. And it seems to be like what it used to be, but on steroids. So to answer the question, of course it's faddy, things will rise and fall in popularity, but will this way of managing fads and this way of managing collectibles and how you can just open up the entire world to certain things, I think that is not a fad, and that is here to stay, whether people want it to or not.
Rather than through the NFT platforms, is there a way maybe to go and hedge your bets some way by actually going and investing in the game developers?
Look, the traditional game developers have largely, now they're starting to shift, but until now the general house line from all of them has been we will not have any games that involve NFTs. So Steam, these big platforms, Blizzard, they don't want it. They want the control. They want to control all the game economics and effectively have ownership of everything. They want hundreds of millions of people to invest all their time in, but they don't want to give any ownership of any in-game assets to external people. In terms of ways to play it, all these games are basically built, the new games, if you like these ones, are built on blockchains. So if you want to invest in the right layer 1 blockchain where everything's built on, they will rise with the popularity of all the games that are built on them. So at the moment, most of them are built on Ethereum. Ethereum's kind of agonizingly slow and expensive at the moment because the whole world's clogging it up with traffic. But there's faster ones that are kind of the next level, cryptocurrencies like Solana. I find them more interesting. Of course, we don't invest in the fund. If you want to invest in kind of the listed equity space, there's a number of ways to do that as well. And these are in some ways, the cheapest, fast-growing companies on the planet. Companies like Coinbase, which is the number 1 interface between crypto land and fiat. You've got companies like Galaxy, which is building, the Goldman Sachs of cryptocurrency, like a full-scale investment bank, prime brokerage, custody, asset management, venture capital, advisory. They've got all those things. They made about $1 billion over the last 12 months, and they were trading on a $7 or $8 billion valuation. Like in the listed land, it's crazy how cheap these things are, given their growth, given the scale of the opportunity. So there's definitely ways to play it in that space as well, and you can use conventional tools and conventional funds to do that.
Yeah, we've got Sandbox. The value of those tokens absolutely going through the roof as of late. But it's like anything. There are failures. Roblox the other day, I think, went down. The CEO had to apologize for a 3-day blackout. Do you invest in Roblox? Would you? Why not?
Look, we like Roblox. It seems kind of a bit slow and steady, that kind of 80-90% growth when you look at something like Sandbox. I think if you want to play the metaverse, that's probably the best conventional way to do it, because it basically is the metaverse. People have their characters. They go and play all the different games as their characters. People have extensive online friendships that they then, within that world. It's a very interesting development model as well, right? So Roblox takes a pretty big cut. But they also encourage a lot of people to develop games. So that's how a lot of people learn how to code, is they're making really basic games for them and their friends to play. 5-10 years later, they're making games that are topping the charts. So it is an interesting way. Sandbox has gone. Funny thing about Sandbox and some of the other cool games like Startless, they haven't actually been released yet. This is all kind of hype, and I think that's kind of dangerous because you don't know what the gameplay will be like. You don't know what people will people invest the time in those things. Again, one advantage they have is people are already financially invested. That will help. That was really what lit a fire under Sandbox and the other kind of metaversey plays in crypto land was Facebook's announcement. But to be honest, I'm a huge skeptic on that. Zuckerberg's shown his hands in Web2. It's a Web2 company. Everybody put their stuff on Facebook for free. You had no ownership of it. He then monetized it, made tens of billions of every time he had an ethical decision to kind of increase engagement at the cost of mental health, at the cost of, even as literally as far as potentially even genocide, some people will say, because people are using Facebook to organize terrible things in foreign countries. all the decision points he made, he generally made for the interests of the Facebook shareholders, which is his right. I mean, he's the CEO, he can make those decisions. He really showed his ethics to all of us. So I don't think many people are going to be like wanting to leap into a more Facebooky world. I think if anything, you're seeing young people just moving away from Facebook. You know, we got quite a few interns, and I see the excitement that they have on their Discord chats and like how interested they are in crypto, and compare that to kind of the engagement in Facebook. You know, it's not the same. They're on different levels. I think Facebook's actually, if anything, probably a loser as we move into this metaverse world, even though they're trying their absolute utmost to do the opposite.
Yeah, you do kind of get the feeling, Michael, that Facebook is, I don't know, grasping at straws, that it's like the boomer on the block. If you were a holder of Facebook, would that be enough for you to sell?
Look, I wouldn't hold Facebook for different reasons. I mean, what those platforms do, they're extremely good at monetizing, but they've had to sacrifice the platform at every step. So every year, they grow extensively, they get more revenue per user, but they do that by showing us more and more ads. I don't know if you've been, Facebook used to be a delight, like a sheer delight. You'd catch up with people you hadn't seen before, you know, you'd connect with people you didn't. I have family all over the country, and plenty of people, and a lot of my best friends live overseas. You know, interacting with them was great, you know, 5, 6, 7 years ago. But every kind of quarter, they've had to jam more ads and try and get more engagement out of people. And now when I go on Facebook, and I know many people would say the same, you know, it's angry. It's like, it just winds you up, you know, or it's some silly viral video. It's not what it used to be. And that's been reflected in, you know, in declining usage in young people. And then if you think about what they did is, so Facebook was really good on a browser. Then mobile came, stock sold off like really early on in its listed career. But then they managed to pivot perfectly to mobile. You know, their ads were just perfectly designed for a mobile phone screen. And that created a huge leg up in value. And then they bought Instagram and WhatsApp. And those founders like don't speak to Zuckerberg anymore. They do not like what he did to their companies. But you think about that was a series of extremely brilliant moves. But now I'm not sure what happens next. I don't think the next Instagram, that mobile world is not where the kind of growth is anymore. All those platforms are starting to kind of like move to X growth. And I don't think Zuckerberg's going to be able to pull that mobile trick or that acquisition trick in the same way that he did in the past. Having said that, you know, you never know. You know, he could also just keep cranking up ads, and it's still one of the most used platforms in the world. So he could just eking out more and more dollars, like harvest more and more cash, and the stock could do extremely well. So it's not really the sort of thing that we would buy. Something we'll watch with interest. But I don't think there's any particular need to kind of rush out and put it at the top of your buy list either.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Michael, but that metaverse meeting, the virtual meeting, is doing not a lot for me. But yeah, maybe in time it will go warm on me.
Michael
exactly.
Frazis.
I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, look at those images of Facebook where it's just some awful meeting room around a whiteboard. Yeah, that sounds horrible. That's not the metaverse we want.
Yeah, I have no desire to meet Mark Zuckerberg in the metaverse, I can tell you that much. Michael, I'd love to meet you in person someday soon. We look forward to doing that.
Sounds good. Thank you. Thanks so much for having me on.
Thank you, Michael.